I think we all understand in the modern world that we shouldn't go out of our way to unnecessarily cause offence to anybody. But we should also be able to speak freely. And one of the places where you should, I would have thought, be able to speak freely is if you're undergoing diversity training, or more specifically race training, and having a free ranging discussion of what is and what is not acceptable and how you might deal with it. Well, Carl Borg-Neil was a former design authority manager at Lloyds Bank, and he'd been there a number of years, and he was a senior manager, and he had to participate in an online training session entitled Race Education for Line Managers. But it all went horribly, horribly wrong, and Carl Borg-Neil joins me.
Thank you, Nigel.
Now, I don't know whether you needed to be educated in, what you can and can't say. Perhaps you did, I don't know. Or maybe this was completely over the top. But I guess you went into it thinking, I'll participate. And it seemed to go wrong when, and this is the account that I've got, and you are dyslexic, and you accept that can sometimes cause you to be clumsy. But I don't think you were in this case. When it comes to rap music, you asked a question as a line manager: how would you handle a situation where somebody from an ethnic minority used a word that might be considered offensive if used by a white person? And this was the N-word. We're not going to use it, but it's the N-word. And the point you were making, I think, is that in rap music, this word is quite commonly used. It's used by some as a self-descriptor. So you were asking this as a question.
Yeah, so it was a very simple question, as you pointed out. But I asked the question without using the N-word.
OK.
The trainer didn't seem to understand my question. And one of the things I've done in terms of my dyslexia is that I've developed some techniques to try and sort of mask it and help out. Those techniques vary from rephrasing the question or giving an example. Well, in this case, the obvious thing was to give an example. And the my brain, I'm told by people that have tested me, I'm very intelligent. I don't really know how intelligent I really am. But apparently the intelligent part of my brain would have wanted to get the example out and would have forced it through my processor, which is slow. This is a problem with dyslexic people. They're often very intelligent, but they have a slow processor in terms of communication and writing. It forced it out, and out came the full N-word as an example. And that was it, really.
After which, the trainer claimed she was not only offended by your use of the word, but she was too sick to work and took 5 days off.
Yeah, I found this out much later on, that the trainer had apparently had to take 5 days off work. I did on several occasions ask for sort of details of her sickness and what support she got, but I never got anything back. No. And I just had to accept it. I did offer to give her a face-to-face apology or a full written apology, and I did actually apologise in the session for having upset her. But that was never done.
That was it. That was the end. You fought a lengthy legal action. You've secured a bit of a victory. But I just wonder about all of this. Well, I'm joined down the line by Alison Mallock, Director of Equality and Diversity UK. And Alison, you've heard that case, and I've no reason to think that Carl isn't telling us the 100% truth, and that's perhaps backed up by the award that the court has given him. Where are we going wrong with all of this?
I think it's really down to the trainer. And when we do our training sessions at Equality Diversity UK, we have a safe space contract. And safe space contract talks about listening to learn, to understand, to empathise, and not to minimise people's experiences. But we also give inclusive nudges. So we say that there may be some language that is unofficially out there that's okay, but in a professional environment, it's not, and we may use some of those terms ourselves in a way that people can understand what they are and what they shouldn't be saying. And therefore, we say, if somebody does upset someone or traumatise them by using inappropriate language, the way that we have to manage it is to say, when you said that, it made me feel this way, and to have that dialogue and that's part of the safe space.
Do you think someone like Carl, as an experienced bank manager, did he really need to do race education?
I think that we all do. I think that if you don't mix in those communities and you don't know those groups, it's important to know about cultural diversity, the sorts of things that people wouldn't know necessarily. So yes, even myself, I've learned a lot. I did a lot in the lockdown in terms of race, because my background isn't how I look. So it's really important that we think through what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. And also, over years, things change. So language that was okay many, many decades ago is not okay now.
No, I get that. Things have always changed. I just wonder with this whole race debate, Alison, whether what we might do is just treat everybody as equal, regardless of skin colour, regardless of culture, and be fair to everybody. That's my thought.
It would be great, Nigel, if that's what happened. But at the end of the day, we have this thing called imprint. And if we grow up in a household that is racist, sexist, homophobic, all of those things, that's what we take with us into the workplace. And we may use language at home. And I'll give you a classic example. There was a woman on the train the other day who was using really offensive language to her child, and it was the F word. And you couldn't believe that this child was 2 or 3 and she was using this language. And I was one of the only people that had been given the child sweets and talking to her. And I said to her, "Why are you using that language?" And she said, "I grew up with that."
I'll have to say, well done you. If I was on that train, I'd have wanted you to do that. So, Alison, thank you for joining me. Quick thought on what Alison had to say, Carl.
To be honest, I think I agree with quite a lot of it. I think...
So she put it down to the trainer.
I think definitely a lot of people have said the trainer overreacted. And in fact, there were some comments by members of staff made anonymously through the staff feedback that she did act inappropriately. And I think some of that's in the thing.
Well, you know what, five days off sick because of what and you weren't using it in a literal sense as an example. Carl, thank you for coming on and sharing your story.